Okay, so we are in the New England Colonies Board that you guys are required to go through and read, take some Cornell notes on the 3 sections of reading below, and then you're also going to go ahead and create that annotated map for the New England colonies. So you're going to have a couple different videos because we're going to go through some read alouds and then through some guided questions in order to help you out with those Cornell notes. So the first piece of this that we are going to do is we are going to scroll down in our board until we get to the Rocky Beginning reading. So we're just going to go ahead and open that up so that it is right here. All right, so a rocky beginning. How did the geography of New England affect how people lived? So we are looking at the geography of New England and the impact that it had on how people were able to live during that time. So our Cornell notes want to have something to do with geography and the impact it had on people. Okay, so let's go ahead and start reading. So we're going to scroll down to the text here. All right, so I want you to follow along as we read. In the 1600s and 1700s, a new religious group, the Puritans, was developing a large following in England. They called themselves Puritans because they wanted to purify the Church of England, which they thought was corrupted by practices similar to the Roman Catholic Church. A group of these Puritans, known as the Pilgrims, were convinced they could not fix the problems within England. First, they moved to the Netherlands, but eventually they looked for a new home on a new continent. In September of 1620, they set sail for North America on a ship called the Mayflower, hoping to create a new society where they could practice their Puritan beliefs. Okay, before we move to that next paragraph, I want you to ask yourself, was there anything in there that was about that geography and how it impacted how people were living? If there is, or there was, any of that information in that paragraph, I want you to pause the video and I want you to go ahead and add some things to your notes right now. Go ahead and press play when you're ready for our next paragraph. All right, next paragraph. After crossing the Atlantic and getting blown far off course, they sailed around Cape Cod and found a protected inlet. They settled in a place they named Plymouth and established the Plymouth Bay Colony. Many more Puritans followed. Each colonist in 1630 established the Massachusetts Bay Colony. English colonists in 1630 established the Massachusetts Bay Colony. The governor of the colony, John Winthrop, declared that the new colony would be a city upon a hill that would provide a model of devout Christian life for the rest of the world. Salem and Boston became 2 of the largest Massachusetts Bay Colony settlements. Because the settlers were English, this area came to be called New England. New England includes the areas that eventually became the states of Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, Massachusetts, Connecticut, and Rhode Island. Okay, so in those 2 paragraphs, we do have some information about the geography. So you might want to be making some notes about where people settled and what states became part of New England. So go ahead and take this time to pause the video, add to your notes, and press play when you are ready for the next section. All right, next section here, the geography of New England. New England was not a paradise. It had long, harsh winters, and the growing season was short. Much of the land was covered with thick forests, which made the land difficult to clear for farming. However, the forests provided fruits and nuts as well as timber for building houses and ships and tools. Forests were also a source of animals for hunting and trapping. Native American groups in the region had mastered hunting and fishing in the region and had strategies for cultivating corn and other crops. When the settlers in Plymouth first arrived, they quickly allied with, I'm not going to say this right, Massoist, a leader of the local Wampanoag Native Americans, and learned hunting and farming techniques from the Native Americans. Once the land was cleared of trees, farming was still difficult. The soil was thin and rocky. Farmers dug so many stones out of their fields that they could build walls around their property with them. These stone walls are still noticeable today in rural parts of New England. They are part of what makes New England a unique cultural region, or an area that is distinctive because of shared characteristics. Okay, so in those two paragraphs, you might want to be talking a little bit about the growing season, what the land was covered with, and how that impacted the settlers. You also probably want to talk a little bit about the soil. So go ahead and pause the video, make sure you get some notes written down about this section, and then go ahead and press play when you're ready to move on. All right, moving on. Large plantations were not practical in New England because of the hills, boulders, and streams, as well as the climate. Most colonists in New England were subsistence farmers, people who produce for themselves the variety of goods they need to live. The coasts of Massachusetts, New Hampshire, and Maine lie on the Gulf of Maine, an area of the Atlantic Ocean extending from Cape Cod north to Nova Scotia. A gulf is a large bay. East of Cape Cod is George's Bank, a shallow area that is extremely attractive to fish. Massachusetts' large sheltered bay and deep water harbors enabled it to develop a thriving ocean-based economy. In particular, fishing, shipbuilding, and whaling helped make the colony prosperous. The Massachusetts House of Representatives has even had a giant wooden codfish hanging in their meeting chamber in the state capitol since 1747. This sacred cod symbolizes the importance of the fishing industry to Massachusetts. Okay, so go ahead and stop, take some notes about plantations, whether or not they were good or not good in New England at this time. Also go ahead and talk about that geography and how it had an impact specifically in Massachusetts, as this paragraph right here points out. Okay, so last section of this reading. In the late 1600s and early 1700s, colonists in Massachusetts began to catch whales in addition to fish. Eventually, whaling became a large and profitable business that provided work for many sailors. Whales were a source of food, and their bones could be used to make a variety of useful items. Most importantly, their fat could be converted to oil, which was burned for heat and light and used to lubricate machines. The marshes, inlets, and swift-flowing streams of New England influenced what people ate and how they made a living. The rivers provided clean water for drinking, cooking, washing, and growing crops. Bodies of water also provided food, including shellfish, ocean, and freshwater fish, and waterfowl such as ducks and geese. Colonists used reeds from the water for making thatched roofs. The coast of New England had many bays, or areas where the land curves around a portion of the sea. Bays were important to the colonists because they provided calm harbors for anchoring, loading, and unloading ships. Many of the region's population centers emerged on bays or near the mouths of rivers to support water-based economic activities there, such as fishing, shipbuilding, and whaling. Because of New England's rocky soil, much of its land was not suitable for development. As a result, New England settlements were commonly located closer together and often had higher populations than did colonial settlements in the middle and southern colonies. For example, the large colonial city of Boston, established in 1630, is located only 50 miles from the colonial city of Derryfield, now Manchester, which was established in the early 1700s. All right, so in this section that we just did, go ahead and talk a little bit in your notes about what they were able to catch, what they were using it for. Then go ahead and look at how those rivers helped make an impact with what people ate, how they made a living, and then go ahead and end those notes with a little bit about the bays and how the bays impacted how those people lived. And then we will be done with those Cornell notes for this first section.